Welcome to the Unpacking It podcast with Bryce Johnson. It's a show that unpacks sports, faith, and life with intriguing guests from the sports and entertainment world. Enjoy inspiring conversations and thought-provoking interviews. You'll hear stories from people that will inspire, challenge, and encourage you. Now, from the Unpacking It studios in Charlotte, North Carolina, uniting sports fans everywhere, here is Bryce Johnson.
Welcome to the Unpacking It podcast, where we unpack sports, faith, and life. I'm Bryce Johnson. Hope you're doing well today. I am fired up to welcome back Lorenzo Alexander. We had him on a couple of years ago, and now he has retired from the NFL. His last stop was with the Buffalo Bills. He played his college football at the University of California, entered the NFL in 2005, so he played 15 seasons, spent time with the Panthers, Redskins, Cardinals, and Raiders, along with the Bills, two-time Pro Bowler, second-team All-Pro, and he was recognized as his team's Walter Payton Man of the Year multiple times, and also the Athletes in Action called a Courage Award. He's a husband, father, and his foundation is called the ACES Foundation. And so we'll get to the interview in just a moment. But before we do that, just want to encourage you to check out our website, unpackingit.com. You can subscribe to our weekday email devotional. We call it Unpack This. It's a quick thought about sports, faith, and life delivered directly to your email inbox. Again, unpackingit.com. Also, I always love hearing from you. Shoot me an email, bryce@unpackingit.com. Love to know what you think about the show, any of the topics we discuss. Send in your feedback, your responses, suggestions, whatever you got. Prayer requests. Would love to hear from you. bryce@unpackingit.com. Stick around at the end of the interview. I've got a few thoughts to share based on something that Lorenzo said. But, man, we get into some really cool conversations. I think you're going to love this interview. He's just a cool guy. You may hear, or my producer may edit it out, but there are some moments where Lorenzo's talking to his child that comes into the room trying to interrupt the interview. But what we love about this show, father first, kids first, interview second. So that was put into play during the interview today. So you'll enjoy it, and Lorenzo trying to balance being a dad and pursue a media career. That's one of his goals. So I asked him about that as well. So a lot to get into with him. Enjoy the conversation. I'll talk to you at the end. But right now, let's jump right in.
Intriguing guests and inspiring conversations. This is Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson.
And joining us now, former NFL linebacker Lorenzo Alexander. Lorenzo, so glad to have you back on Unpacking It. How are you?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you guys reaching out and having me back on, but things are going well so far. Still like off-season, regular routine for us, but the biggest difference has been trying to relocate back here to Phoenix and get everybody set up as far as schools, sports, and then just get the house unpacked and in place.
Yeah. So how did you decide that, hey, Phoenix is where we want to be post-NFL career?
Well, I had the pleasure of playing here for 2 years in 2013 and 14. We made some great friends and relationships with the people that were kind of here locally, and my wife fell in love with it. At first, I was kind of opposed to it because I played in Washington for about 7 years and really was in love with the D.C. community and lifestyle. But after experiencing Buffalo's winters, I had nothing, an inkling of me wanted to deal with cold whatsoever. I didn't want to experience a winter unless I decided to drive to it. So Phoenix is a great spot. You can drive up to Flagstaff and some other places if you want to see snow. And then also for us, we wanted to be closer to family. My mom is in California. We convinced her to move to Phoenix, which I don't think I was going to be able to convince her to go to the East Coast in D.C. That's a little too far for her. And then my wife is from Salt Lake. And so it's a good midpoint for the most part as far as driving, flying to both cities. And then also the cost of living. It's not crazy like a Virginia or DC area or a California, which is crazy and out of his mind.
Man, no, that's exciting. I've only been to the airport in Phoenix, but it seems awesome, and everything you hear is great. So that's cool that you're settling down there. Well, before we talk about kind of post-career, I know you were down in Miami for the Super Bowl and the NFL honors and a lot going on. What was your experience like? What were some of the highlights from Super Bowl week?
Super Bowl week is great. It's always just a great time to get back together with guys around the league that you don't see that often. So it's always a reunion of sorts, seeing some of the legends of the community, guys that you grew up watching play. And I guess the highlight of that trip had to be just kind of hanging out on the bus. It was Emmitt Smith, it was Ray Lewis, and Brett Favre, and we were just going to the game. Obviously, those guys are on the all-100 team. And so just hearing the conversations, kind of hanging out, and, we're driving. There was a ton of traffic in Miami. It was a ton of traffic all week. But going to the game that day, we were kind of delayed, and Brett Favre was hungry. I had like chicken and waffles on my plate, and he was eyeing my food. Like, Brett, you want some, man? I'll hook you up. At first, he tried to play it cool, but the longer we were on the bus, the longer it took. He was like, "Hey, bro, can I get some?"
Oh, that's
great. I was
great.
like, "Sure, yeah, no worries." And so that was kind of a cool, moment. Brett Favre asking for some of my chicken and waffles, but
that's
overall,
funny.
the week was great. Yeah, the week was great. The Man of the Year event, just being able to go down there, meet people from nationwide, serve the community at the local Boys and Girls Club, and then get to always, kind of rub shoulders and kind of talk to guys around the league that are doing great jobs in their respective cities. And then to see Calais win it was really cool. Obviously, I wanted to do it, but obviously playing with Calais here in Arizona, I know what type of man he is, husband and potential and future father he will be, and know his family. He does great work wherever city he's in, especially when he was here in Arizona as well.
Talking about the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, and of course Calais Campbell won it, but you were one of the nominees, and which is a great honor. So really cool all that you've been doing in communities throughout your entire career. But I was curious though, you mentioned all those different players being able to rub shoulders with guys like Brett Favre and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Who were you a fan of growing up, and did you ever get a chance to meet that person?
My favorite player probably all time in the NFL is Deion Sanders. And I actually did get a chance to meet him. It was the first night they did like this big panel. It was him, Brett Favre, Ray Lewis, and some just the legends. Rob Woodson, I think, was up there as well, just talking about, what they're doing now and some of the things that they would give younger guys as far as just advice and some wisdom. And so after going out, one of my other friends that I know that played in the league kind of in that era, Eddie Mason, was a linebacker for the Redskins for a long time. He knows all those guys. So I actually ran into him, was talking to them, and then Ray came out, Deion came out, and he kind of introduced us. So it was kind of cool. And I'm playing it cool. Like, nah, I don't need no picture. My wife was like, get a picture. Like, nah. It's Deion Sanders, but I'm not gonna be that guy. So
so no picture.
Eddie Mason. I did end up getting one, but it was more like Eddie Mason wanted to get a picture with all the guys. So here's Eddie Mason, a guy that I admire. Ray Lewis, watching him play. Deion Sanders, my favorite player. And I'm on the edge, like, hey, what's up? I'm in here with him. So it was cool, and it was a way for me to get a picture without feeling like a complete fanboy.
That's all right. You always have a few guys where it's still okay to be that way.
Right.
Well. So the big news in your life, of course, is saying, hey, after 15 years, I'm retiring from the NFL. I guess on one end, has it set in yet? And then the second part of that is why this year versus even last year, or even a couple years ago. Why did you know it was now?
Well, I guess the first part of that question, I'm not sure if it's set in or not, because this is still like the normal part of any offseason I would have. I haven't missed a OTA or organized team activity where we have to lift weights, run. I haven't missed a game yet or a training camp. And so I think when those dates approach and I don't have to go to them, I'll probably start feeling a certain type of way. But I think some of the immediate stuff that I've noticed, because I do know that I'm not preparing for an off season or a training camp. So like working out is cool, but if I run out of time in the day, it's not a priority, especially like right now, unpacking the house, getting the kids all settled. Where before I said, I'm getting this workout in, and then everything else will fit around it. So I've kind of stepped back in that sense. Probably the biggest difference. Also eating out. I'm a stickler when it comes to my diet. I used to be 315 pounds, now I'm like 240, 245. And so, my wife had a birthday. We had an anniversary. Our friends had an anniversary too this past week. Normally I wouldn't get dessert or I wouldn't eat bread and all that. I indulged in some bread and some dessert.
Good for you.
I was like, hey, I'm not prepared for anything. So why not? And so those are the biggest things. And then why this year? I think it was my body had just started talking to me was the biggest thing. My kids are getting older as well, the ones that are in the house at least. My daughter's 11. My son is 9. My youngest son is 5. We have an older daughter, 24, but she's out of the house now. And I think even having my older daughter, I realized how fast at time, because when me and my wife got married, she was 11. And I look up, she's in grad school, and she's 24.
Wow.
And has a serious boyfriend, all that type of stuff. Adult stuff is going on, and I have an 11-year-old where I'm like, man, this is about to fly by. She's the same age as Vanessa when I met her, and so I think with my body talking to me, understanding where I am as far as being a father and how old my kids are and where they're at and how fast it's going to go. And then just playing the game. I mean, at some point you can't play forever. And I think just all those things coming together allowed me to make the decision and made it more peaceful, because it was more about choosing my family and not deciding to stop playing football. And so those things made it easier for me. And then a couple other things took place, like my uncle who raised me, more like my father figure, and he's more of I think he would be more of that old school dad who doesn't show his emotions as much. The older we've gotten, he'll say, I love you and stuff, but I always knew that, but he'll actually share those thoughts verbally. But he also, I'm proud of you. You've had a great career. There's nothing else you can do. So when you hear those type of words from your father, essentially in those regards, it's like, okay, I'm at peace with it. So there's a couple of things I think that were working that allowed me to say, okay, I'm done. I can be at peace with this. I've done what I set out to do. And now let's transition to this next part of life. And then also let me, kind of even, I don't want to say recommit, but engage even more in being a husband and being a father, because I was always those things. But now I don't have to sacrifice missing something because of a game or because of training camp or whatever may be going on because of work.
No, man, that's awesome. And what a tremendous 15-year career. And to be able to say that you played that long and then to be able to accomplish all that you did, it's remarkable. And I'm excited for you to see what's next. And so I'm curious, from a faith perspective, a prayer perspective, what was that like, seeking the Lord to make this decision to retire? And then now for this next phase of your life, late 30s, you still got the rest of your life, Lord willing.
Right.
But praying through, what ultimately God wants you to do next.
I mean, well, God has been, I think the center of this whole process. Even when I thinking about 4 years ago, when I, the thought in my mind, like, okay, I'm getting close to that time where I need to start retiring, and making sure that I put it at his feet and to help me make a decision. Not what I wanted to do, but what he wanted to do. Because you can leave the game too early where he still wanted me to make some impact. So, for example, if I were to decide to retire after Oakland, which was a big-time thought, my wife thought I was going to retire, I wouldn't have had the impact in the Buffalo community, and they wouldn't have had the impact on me. So it wasn't my time. And so I think this time around, he started putting people in place around me to kind of speak a little bit of a different truth as far as walking away. And the season didn't start off like that. I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't making a decision, but allowing God to lead me through the experience and people that he put in my path to help me make it. Because oftentimes I can say, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and something completely happens in life. And it's like, okay, that was God telling me that my thought and my plan was dumb. And so I just left it open. Me and my wife agreed kind of to that at the beginning of the season. I think through the season, through the process of experiencing another year playing football, the ups and downs and all that entails mentally and physically. And then also having different people speaking to my life. I think Kyle Williams being one of those catalysts as well, who came back to speak to our small group that we have for, husbands and wives and single guys, and him kind of sharing his journey, life after football, and really naming some of the things I talked about with your daughters and your sons, and really being there for them. Hearing all that, I think, really helped me make that decision, and I definitely think that was God sent from that perspective.
That's awesome. And so then to now look at this, second half of your career, your new kind of life and all that. What is that process like from a prayer standpoint and having those conversations with people? And not that you have to make that decision already, but what's it been like?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, obviously prayers are daily practice and just trying to put that out there to God as far as obviously he already knows my needs and wants, but just making sure that my heart is in the right place to receive what he's trying to provide for me. And knowing that to prioritize things in a certain type of way with him in mind, then my family, and then whatever I want to do, especially this time around, because at the end of my career, football started surpassing family in the sense that I had to prepare, taking care of my body, massages, dry needling, all that stuff that people don't know about or don't see almost became just another job in itself. And when you put that together collectively with actually working out and doing the things that's going to let you be a good football player, it became, and this is the best way, it became an idol in a way because I had to serve it. In order to live out my passion and do what I wanted to do, I had to serve it. And so it started to climb over my family, which led. So this time I want to make sure whatever I'm doing is based around my family. It's flexible around my family because all that sacrifice and all that stuff I had to do prior, I don't want to have to do right now. And obviously financially, we've been able to secure that. But then, people always want to have a purpose in life and want to be driven. And it's easy for me to run out there and say yes to everything. And so right now, I've really been kind of just stepping back, reading the Bible, reading some books about finishing strong. And I think also adding in what happened with Kobe Bryant and his family and how that just, was so tragic, just learning from that and making sure that you don't allow things outside of your family to kind of take away as well as God. So just try to focus on them and we'll see. And so right now I have some media opportunities. I have some things I can do with the Bills, the PA. There's a lot of opportunity out there right now. I just want to make sure that it all fits around my family, because we all say our family's important, and then life takes over and your passions and your drives, and you kind of push them slowly to the side. And so I want to make sure I don't make that mistake as I transition into whatever I decide to do. So right now it's up in the air. I'm kind of freelance and doing some media stuff. Obviously, I still have some PA obligations, but I guess I've kind of been saying this new phrase. I want to maximize my time when I'm doing those things, but also minimize it. So if I have to take a early morning flight, flying for the day, and then fly right after, so I can only miss one day with my kids, so I don't miss 2 mornings of taking them to school and getting them ready, or 2 nights of bathing them, that's what I'm going to do. And I'm going to make that sacrifice so I can maximize my time here as much as I can.
That's right. Well, speaking of, we got one of your kids trying to jump in here.
Yeah, this is the baby, Miles. What do you need?
Then she take the computer. She didn't go back where she was gonna do to get me water.
Okay, we're gonna get you water. Get him some water, please.
Got to get some water.
So, yeah. See, even now, I have to minimize my time and commitment to you.
That's right.
Because of the family,
No, that's okay. Hey, totally understand. No worries.
Yeah.
Well, you mentioned the media side of things. Of course, we're doing that now, having some fun with the interview. But when you were a player, what was your perspective of the media? How did you consume sports media? And
right.
Did you watch it with kind of the end in mind, thinking, oh, maybe one day I could do that? And did you kind of learn or take steps to develop even during your playing days?
Yeah, well, early in my career, we had somebody that always talked about the relationship with your media. And every year they would say, make sure you get to know the guys that are covering you, become their friends. And obviously not to get nothing out of it, but, if I know you well and you're my friend, it's going to be harder for you to be critical of me, and when you are critical of me, you're going to do it in a more respectful way. So I think that's how my relationship initially started out. And then obviously after playing for a long time, being around some of these guys 4 or 5 years, getting to know their families, them getting to know mine, there was a real relationship that was forged. And that goes back to my Washington days when I'm thinking about guys like Jason Reed, Mike Wise, Mike Jones, and then even up in Buffalo, when I think about Sal Capaccio, think about Vic, certain guys that really stick out in my mind that we really have a great relationship now. And I'll continue to talk to those guys even when I'm done. But I did used to listen to like the local station or even some of the national guys. And from my perspective, just seeing how they talked about players, how they talked about the game, things I liked, things I didn't like. Obviously, hearing other players once they took made that transition as well, listen to how they did it as well. And you find everybody has their own style and everybody has their own way about going about things. But I always appreciated the guys that even when they criticize guys, they had a level of respect of how hard it is to perform on the professional level. And then also always going out of their way to really kind of get to know guys outside of the game. Those two things were really cool and I thought were probably the biggest attributes anybody can have, especially when they walk in the locker room, especially as a beat reporter. Yeah, you cover me, but when you cover me, are you respectful? And then when you're coming in and maybe you don't have nothing to talk to me about that day, or you ask about what am I doing with my foundation or how's my family? Hey, can I write a story about your family or a story about your foundation? And it wasn't just always about ball and what are you doing as far as helping this team win. It was much more perspective of who I was as a man, which included football, but also my family and some of the other passions that I had off the field.
Man, to take all that into what you might end up doing, that could be cool. That's a great perspective to have. And I think the biggest thing when players when they're analysts, don't allow everything to always have to come back to them or when they played. I think is good too. When you can just let the current players be the guy and talk about what they're doing. I think of a few guys that come to mind that just every time it always ends up going back to them. And so
well, I'm not that great of a player. I'm not a Hall of Famer, so I'm not gonna beat my chest like I was all that. I played well, but I definitely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, no, there's one former quarterback that comes to mind, but
but
anyway, well, in thinking about your 15 years in the NFL, and I mean, you had just incredible story from going to different teams and all the different coaches that you played for and players that you interacted with. What were some of the most pivotal maybe moments or key people that really impacted your faith and impacted your character and who you became, and ultimately the Lorenzo Alexander that's walking away from the NFL? What are some of the things that come to mind the most that had the biggest impact on you?
Wow, obviously there's so many guys that kind of pop in my mind, but I think I'll go back to the catalyst of it, and it's much like this Kobe Bryant story, thinking about Sean Taylor. And, I had an opportunity to be around him for about a year and a half or so, and saw how he worked, saw the greatness in him as far as being a football player, but then also started seeing the transition for him as a person and a man, having a fiance at the time, having a young daughter, and then starting to see his maturity starting to come on and having that transition. And so, and then he passed away. He was, 23? I think we were 23 or 24 at the time. Oh. And so you see a guy about to walk into his purpose and to the full, and then it's gone. And so for me, that really made me self-reflect and see where I was at my time in my life. And even though I was in the NFL and making money and living my dream, I wasn't living life. I was living at a very low bar. And at that point in my time, God wasn't even, I knew who God was. I knew, what he represented, but it was more of a religion to me and no relationship there. And so kind of after that, I really started seeking, and some guys had already been kind of working on me anyway. I think about James Thrash. I think about Antoine Randall. I think about Bernardo Wynn. And then we had our team chaplain, Pastor Brett Fuller. And those guys were living life on a whole different level. And at the time, I didn't know what it was. Now I realized the Holy Spirit that was residing in them that they had received through Christ. But it was just amazing to see how those guys walk life on a day-to-day basis and didn't allow football wasn't the end-all, be-all. We could lose a game and they're still showing up with a certain joy and light about them. And not that they didn't care about losing, but they knew that wasn't what life was all about. And just the way they lived their life, the way they treat their wives. Because before then, you'll see guys talk about they was Christians and this, and then I would be in the club and I would look over and see them in the club too. Wow. And their wife wouldn't be with them. And so there was a disconnect for me. I'm like, well, I just didn't really get it until I saw them living it out to the fullest. And it was in all parts of their life. They didn't compartmentalize Jesus just before the team prayer. Hopefully he helps me to go out there and play well so then I can receive all these blessings. It was a complete just releasing and surrendering of who they were to their Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And so seeing those guys, the way they work, the way they operated, the way they place God at the center of everything they do or did and still do, because I'm still great friends with a lot of those guys now, really helped me build a great foundation and then just continue to put blocks on top of blocks, as I got where I'm at now, and I'm still growing. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned through this walk with Christ is that you never really ever arrive, and you never, because Christ is, is way up here, and we all fall short of him. But it's just a consistent grind, just like in your work life or your football. And so I always tell guys, the better person you are, the closer you are with Christ, the better the relationship you are there, the better person you are. Everything else you want to do is going to become better just naturally. But if you just try to focus on being a good football player or being a good dad, you may see growth in just that area. But when you insert Christ and that becomes your center and your foundation, all those other things are going to rise and exceed any expectation that you even thought about it. And so that's the kind of the philosophy I've kind of taken, is just trying to focus on Christ, my relationship with him. And then I understand, and I've seen, because been witness in my own life, that everything around me becomes better. And that doesn't mean I haven't had any trials, but it's definitely better blessed and doing much better than I ever could do on my own will and in my own power and understanding.
Amen. No, it becomes more fruitful, meaningful, purposeful, and when we've got the the power of Christ in us to propel us forward and making wise decisions and all that comes with the daily walk with him. So appreciate you sharing that. And then you talk about the guys that impacted you early on and throughout your career. Yeah. And I know later on in your career, you're a key leader in that, especially in that Bills locker room the last couple of years. What was your approach to leadership, and how tough is it for you to kind of walk away from the locker room from that perspective and the impact that you were able to, I assume, have on a lot of those guys these last few years?
Yeah, I mean, that's always the hardest thing at the end of the day, is the relationships that you build. That was one of the reasons why I didn't want to leave Washington. But I had to, because it helped me grow so much as far as my faith and leadership skills, that I had to learn to kind of walk through some things that were uncomfortable for me. And the same thing for Buffalo. I mean, I didn't want to leave. There's a lot of young guys in that locker room, a lot of guys of my peers that we cut on each other, really help each other grow. And so it was, that's always the hardest thing, just leaving guys, because you want to be part of the group. You want to be part of their growth on and off the field. So what has helped me, I think, be that catalyst or be that guy, I think it's just living it out and really taking the model that, Antoine Randall, James Thrash, Renardo Wynn showed me, and just living it and making sure, because guys, your teammates are going to be your biggest critics of all, because they see every single thing that you do. They see how you talk, how you walk, when your family's there, when your kids are around, when they're not, when your wife is there, how are you talking, how are you holding yourself up when you have, because you're going to be in environments where there may be women around, single women, after game, post game, and your wife isn't there. We're out to dinner. How am I conducting myself? Am I being flirtatious, even though it may be okay in the eyes, or no, I'm not even entertaining that. I'm keeping a certain level of respect for my wife, when she's not around. And I think guys see that complete picture better than anybody else that you really have a relationship with, because those opportunities to fall come up a lot more just in the world of, being a person, but even on the NFL professional level, or even more right in your face. And so I think that is the foundation, and it's really hard to do in any other type of way, because guys have to feel that you're genuine as far as who you are, or you just sound like you're just another guy just being a preacher, but you're not living it. You become just a hypocrite in a lot of ways. And so once I think you gain the trust in the way that your life adds up to what you're talking to them, and it's there's really no gray area. Guys are more willing to listen and receive what you're trying to give them, because they know you're living it and you're not just talking about it and preaching it because it sounds good. And so that's been the best way for me to really impact. And I think that's the best way, even without using words, because sometimes I can't impact and talk to everybody the same way I can talk to, maybe a Tremaine Edmonds who's in my room every day, or Matt Milano who's in my room every day, because I sit right next to those guys and I spend a lot more time with them than I may do an offensive lineman. But that offensive lineman still sees me in the locker room, still sees me on trips, still sees me, working out wherever we may be doing, and sees how I'm talking. And even though I'm unaware of it, they're watching. And it's crazy how as I transition away from the game or transition away from teams, guys I come back in contact with who I had no idea had a respect for just how I lived my life, either say something or you hear them in an interview. I'm like, man, I had an impact like that. I really didn't talk to them too much.
Wow.
But they were watching me, watching how I carried myself and watching how I treated my teammates and the coaches and people in the front office and all those types of our staff, support staff, the people that clean our bathrooms, the people that cook our food. All those are relationships that, people saw how I interacted and had I think developed a respect for who I was as a man and who I was as a follower of Christ. Because that's where it all stems from. And so those are the kind of the ways I've kind of implemented. And then especially now that I've had more of a speaking role that I've evolved into, being an older guy, I think that's the things that I'm going to miss. But hopefully the Bills hopefully carve out maybe a position for me, or whether it's with the NFLPA, they have a player advocate role to where you still are able to build relationships and mentor young men, especially in the area of professional football, of what it looks like to be a professional, but what does it look like to be a great human being, and how those two things cannot be stand alone from one another. They need to be working together.
Man, no, I love it. And gosh, a couple big takeaways, just thinking that there you were watching guys like Ronaldo win, who's a friend of mine, and I know what a stud, awesome guy he is, to then, years later in your career, younger guys are looking up to you, and what a beautiful picture that is. And to be reminded, too, that so often people are watching us, and we won't always know that until years later, and sometimes they'll reach out to us when they hit a crisis in their life, when they find themselves at a turning point or a pivotal moment, and they remember who was consistent. They remember who really, walked the talk, and then they reach out and we're able to pour into them or meet them in that difficulty that they're facing. So, man, so that's encouraging to hear, and just a nice reminder for all of us today. Well, Lorenzo, man, we could talk all day. I know you got to get back to your kids, and I got to get home and do bath time for my 6-month-old. So, but let's wrap it up and give us kind of an update on the ACES Foundation and maybe something that you're most excited about now that you do have a little bit more time to even pour into it.
Well, I think outside of my family, just engaging in, my wife and my kids, I think the biggest thing that I'm excited about is trying to develop a mentor discipleship program for young athletes, really starting here in the Phoenix area, but then also some of the relationships I established in Oakland when I'm there. I have a couple of young cousins that are going to get ready to be seniors in high school, and then a couple of kids in Buffalo that I had a chance to mentor at South Park High School. I'm going to do a little bit of a pilot program. I have about 5 or 6 kids that I fly out to Phoenix. We're going to do pretty much like a combine, a life combine though. We're going to train and work out and do all those football specific type drills and things or whatever position they play, but then also have a discipleship group in the morning where we do maybe a scripture and talk about God and faith and how important that plays in your life, and then go through different life lessons, wisdom, responsibility, doing everything to your best of your ability as you're serving Christ and not on the man. So just different concepts like that. And then also some life skills, bringing in a financial advisor. How can they, at 17, 18, start understanding some of these concepts and start building some of these financial skills that's going to help them, how to interview, how to build a resume. So it would be a life combine, life sports combine, essentially what I'll be trying to do here locally in Phoenix with about 4 or 5 kids, just so I can intimately get to know them and speak to their issues, speak to their dreams, their wants, their greatness. And that's something that I'm really looking forward to as I transition into this next chapter that will start this summer and then hopefully be a year-long thing and grow this thing to where the guys that I'm starting now with this first group will become mentors in the next 3 or 4 years. And then you just kind of pave it forward. And obviously they'll be mentors in their own communities and their teams that they're participating with as well. So just trying to build really warriors for Christ, using sports as a avenue of doing that. So that's what awesome. I'm kind of looking forward to doing as I transition away.
I love it. And the idea that, hey, just pouring into 4 or 5 guys makes a huge difference, because then they end up doing it in the same kind of thing that we were talking about. So sometimes we're like, oh, we want to reach thousands or hundreds or whatever. Sometimes you just pour into 5 and do it really well. And
Yeah.
it's amazing what God can do. Hey, Jesus poured into his 12
His
disciples.
12.
So yeah, so that's
Right.
the
Yep.
model to use for sure. Well, Lorenzo, man, so great to catch up with you. Excited about what you have in store next, and hopefully we'll be seeing you a lot more doing some media stuff, and hopefully we can continue to catch up with you as well here on Unpacking It. So thanks for joining us today, and enjoy these next couple of off-season months that you're used to. But then it's really going to matter this fall. So soak it in.
All right, Bryce. I appreciate you, brother. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Lorenzo. There's Lorenzo Alexander right here on the Unpacking It podcast.
Intriguing guests and inspiring conversations. This is Unpacking It with Bryce Johnson.
He's awesome, and I think we'll start seeing and hearing him all around different media outlets here soon. And he's already doing a little bit of it. I heard him on with Jim Rome the other day. He's great, but I think he'll get an analyst job somewhere. I mean, he's better than a lot of guys on air right now. But yeah, I kind of put him on the spot. I was given suggestions on don't make it all about you. Hopefully he received that okay. But there's just certain players. It's more so, I don't know. It's almost the guys that aren't that good that want to somehow prove that they were good. Like they almost have to talk about their game sometimes. So I hate to call out people, but Phil Simms, man, I love this show, the Inside the NFL. But it's just like it can't always come back to Phil Simms. Like just talk about the players. It doesn't have to be about you, Phil. So if Phil wants to come on the show, talk about it. That's fine. But that was who I was referring to. So I think Lorenzo, he'll be great, and he doesn't have to prove anything. People know he was awesome. 15 years in the NFL, it's great. And he overcame a lot, especially early on in his career, bouncing around from different teams to land in, I think Washington was big for him, and then Buffalo really clicked in those cities. So happy for him, great career, and excited for what's next for him. The one big takeaway, there are multiple things, but I talked a little bit about it in response, but the conversation where Lorenzo was talking about, Jesus changes us and he makes us better in all those different areas. Like we can work really hard and we can get better at something and, become a better football player or whatever it may be. But what ends up happening is when we allow Christ to take over all of our life, we surrender to him. We invite him to be, our Lord, our Savior, our all in all, and say, all right, God, I want you to affect this area of my life, every area of my life. Say, God, you can do tremendous things in me and through me, and I can become a better husband because I'm listening to you, following you, studying your word. And once we understand his character, pursue after him, it begins changing us from the inside out. And so we become the better husband, the better father, the better worker, all of those different things because Christ is working in us instead of our own strength, instead of our own power, instead of our own limited understanding. He's now doing it through us and in us. And so I think that's what Lorenzo was saying, and I just love that, and hopefully that's an encouragement to us as we wrap things up today, that he, gosh, in my life, I'm always trying to make the ministry better, make the show better, but ultimately, when I'm resting in him and when I'm allowing him to shine through me, you're going to like this show a lot better, I promise. If I'm getting in the way, if I'm making this about me, it's not going to be as good. I'm telling you. When at home, when it's all about me and I'm living selfishly and I'm kind of, trying to be a husband in my own strength, Jody doesn't like me very much. And that's the reality of it. But when I'm devoted to Christ and I'm saying, shine through me, I need your strength. I am weak. You are strong. Please meet me in this place. And before I walk into the craziness of the household and whatever's going on after a long day, Lord, I need you right now. And when he empowers me, there's a difference. And so it's available to us, but we have to submit. We have to submit and surrender to him. A lot of times we just try to get in the way, and that's the challenge. So Hopefully that makes sense. Thanks for listening to the Unpacking It podcast today. We've got Clark Kellogg coming up, so look forward to that podcast in just a little bit. Al Wallace is scheduled to join us. Chris Broussard is coming up soon, so we're getting excited. The Unpacking It podcast is really taken off. So thanks to you for listening. Continue to spread the word. Send us your emails, bryce@unpackingit.com, and share the podcast, review it, and leave your feedback. So we greatly appreciate it. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and thanks for listening to the Unpacking It podcast. I'm Bryce Johnson. I'm a sports fan who follows Jesus. I believe in the good news that he died on the cross for my sins. He was resurrected, and through faith, I've been saved by his grace. I hope that is true for you as well, and I hope you'll join me as we live life as sports fans who follow Jesus together. We'll talk to you next time.
For more information about the show, our events, and other resources, visit unpackingit.com. That's unpackingit.com. We hope you are encouraged, inspired, and challenged by what you heard today. To support our show and Unpacking It Ministries with a financial gift, visit unpackingit.com/donate. We look forward to unpacking sports, faith, and life with you again next week.